So I got tagged by Dr. Claire Smith's channel. There'll be links here and there everywhere. It's one of them fragrance question videos that come along every now and again, and it's probably you know, some ground I've covered before, but it's always good to look back, and opinions will have changed and all of that jazz. Oh, look at that water after some rain. And yeah, I mean, there's no point in me complaining about that. I should make one up myself one day, shouldn't I, really? I'm sure I'll get round to it at some point. Anyway, I don't know who originally did the tag. This is meaningless waffle, isn't it? That's not very helpful. But it'll probably be tagged on Claire's video. I'm sure you'll have already seen that one anyway. Anyway, let's get started on it. So the first question, I'm flipping around with the second question, otherwise I'll be repeating myself. So who is the first person you watched on YouTube? Well, it was Chris Fragmental. I'll get into it more with the next question, but obviously just kind of happenstance came across Chris. Probably because the algorithm will push the biggest people, doesn't it? And obviously Chris was then and is now one of the biggest. So that's the first person I watched. Now, funnily enough, started watching about clones back in the day from Perfume Parlour, which is ultimately what got me into all of this more generally. I tried a few, was like, wow. Obviously they're not the originals and that, and I think, God, I can never remember the first three I got, but I know at least two of them. The Noir de Noir one and the Back to Black one I own the originals of now. So it just shows that's what clones are. It's a way of getting into it, way of sampling. You know, not wanting to pull the trigger quite as much. And I think they've got. Anyway, that's not the question. So it was Chris from Fragmental. Do I still watch Chris nowadays? Sometimes. I'm not as religious a YouTube watcher as I once was. Chris's content is kind of that. I don't need to do a review, we all know Chris, he's great. He does kind of content for the more casual kind of fragrance person, I think, and they're very approachable videos. Started to use a lot more humour now and that, and there's a reason he's one of the biggest, isn't there, really? You kind of get a gist of what fragrance is like. Sometimes he does cover the odd niche fragrance here and there, but I think the frustration for Chris with them is they don't do very well, do they? Anyway, so the first perfume channel I watched was Fragmental. So next is what got me into fragrance YouTube. Well, I've told this story many times. It's kind of a failed, well, it failed at the time by Alien Man. And for some reason I thought I really want a fragrance that I wear. I mean, I've been into fragrances here and there as a kind of a younger person, but not really as much. I thought, do you know what, I want to really start wearing more interesting things. So yeah, so I googled stuff, and I don't know how on earth I came across Chris's channel specifically. I don't know what I mean is, obviously he's recommended, isn't he, with having that algorithm thing, but what I googled, I've no idea. Anyway, I started watching Chris's videos and learning all about things. I thought, this is quite exciting, isn't it, really? And then that led to me kind of coming across Steve, Frags to Riches, I can never remember, Everyman Fragrances now, he changed his channel name. And yeah, my endless comments and whatnot pushed me over to Instagram. And there started doing posts and stuff like that, but this is specifically about YouTube, innit? So I'll try and stick to the brief. And then God, big Haley, I can't remember her handle name, but we're swapping a few fragrances, and she sent me what's it called, the Secretions Magnifique, and said, are you going to make a video of it? So I did, and then I don't know, it took me a while to get used to making videos, and considering my channel's about 5-year-old and stuff, you can see I'm not really a YouTuber. There's not really, I'm not very known. There are a lot of videos, but it's quite a secret kind of thing, and eventually you catch the bug, don't you? I like talking, so yeah, so that's where my YouTube channel came from. And obviously back in the day I watched an awful lot of people But I still do, but it's not as many because it starts to get exhausting, doesn't it, at one point. And nowadays, I mean, I'm making list videos, but the endless similar lists, the endless kind of just what's popular videos and that really has reigned over YouTube. You don't need to watch many videos because they all end up being the same. Same gifted bottles at the same time, the same new bottles at the same time, and it's just, yeah, it's a bit tiring, doesn't it? Who influences me the most? That's a really tricky question, isn't it, actually? Because I think we get to a stage where we are influenced quite a lot, and men not so much. And it's really, considering I started watching Steve and Chris, who quite obviously are not my taste in fragrances. They're as far apart as you can get when we've been into the florals and stuff. So who influences me the most? It's quite tricky. There's Clemence, who I watched a lot of, and back in the day she was so good. She still is now, but it's a different style now, isn't it? And yeah, I got influenced a lot by that. There's quite a few fragrances I own that were from her, and also Rosa Jones now. We've been friends for quite a long time, and sometimes it's rare our tastes cross, but they do sometimes, and yeah, I tend to absolutely love them. And Claire Smurfy Girly, is that the person I've got most similar taste to? Sometimes we do, and obviously her videos are really in depth and really interesting, but Claire now does other content as well. So yeah, that's I suppose the answer to that question as such. When did I start wearing perfume? Tricky one that. I think I was about 13 or 14 when the first one was bought for me, which was Dupont, and that started a whole legacy, a whole story, a whole life, a whole kind of era of Dupont. And I did love that one. It's a very nice fragrance indeed, isn't it, really, to be fair? And it was iconic, and of course everyone wore it. I think my brother may have bought it for me. When I was a youth, do you know what? There was an aftershave from Avon, and it was in like a ribbed red bottle, like a bottle like that. And that smelled absolutely gorgeous. That could have been one of the things, again, that kind of ignited a little bit of it. And obviously, I was a youth once. I wore lots of links. I was particularly an Apollo boy, the original formulation. And what was it called? Inca as well. Africa brings me out in a rash. So I was never really into the popular one. Tempest, wasn't there? Anyway, nobody needs to hear that. Well, yeah, I suppose I was 10, 11 with them, and then, you know, that age. And then when I went to university, I bought quite a few with my own money. I think the first one I may have bought was it Boss Soul maybe, and Armani White, which is long since discontinued with Boss Soul, and Burberry Touch, which I still wear nowadays quite a lot. Beautiful violet one, which has obviously influenced my taste quite a bit, hasn't it, actually? So yeah, that's kind of it. And when did this thing kind of start? Let's just say when I was much older, 5 years, it must be 5 years ago now. It was before COVID anyway. So do I wear perfume to bed? Yes, not always. I kind of scent my sheets with perfume as well when they're first put on, all fresh, and that's generally a vanilla, just because vanilla is, you know, it's cozy and pleasant and what have you, rather than something funky or, you know, whatever, because you need to be able to get to sleep. If I wear a perfume to bed, it's going to be something easygoing, light, fresh. Sometimes, well, if I'm not going to bed alone, although that's been a long time, hasn't it? Then I might wear something, I don't know, a little more interesting, but generally it'll be something that I enjoy and easy, like Greedy Or, very posh to wear to bed, or something of similar kind of things to that. So yeah. So if I could keep three fragrances, only three fragrances, and why? Well, in this second of time, off the top of my head, Date with a Dame, beautiful musky one. It's very me, it's one of my favourite fragrances ever. I adore it. It's musky, it's kind of a bit naughty sometimes, it's tuberose, so that's one of them. Obviously dupe on, because it's my life in a bottle really, so obviously I'm going to want to keep that one. Takes me back to them good old times or such like, and been a more handsome, slimmer man with more energy and verve about myself. And not thinking about it. God, trying not to say rolling in love. This is the thing, I'm thinking of everything except rolling in love. This is bad. Time, may have to cut this. Let's go for Coco Mademoiselle Intense, because it's one of, I don't own many mass appealing ones, do I? And ones everybody knows, and I'd say that's one of them. It's very lovely, it's very easy. I'll probably need to buy a new bottle of that at some point. It's just enjoyable. It's that original DNA, smoothed out, warmer, a little more easy to wear, not as shouty. So yeah, the worst perfume I've ever smelled is let's go. Well, we know it's an Ishio Oud for greatness, and I'm not sure technically, literally, it's the worst. Although it's in the top 2, let's say. But it's more that it's so bad, so horrific, so synthetic, so loud, so nondescript, so gloopy, so overpriced. I mean, that's where it comes into it. Why I'd say it's the worst, because of the price point. £300 for some chemical soup. I'm sure I could get that a lot cheaper and easier if, you know, I could make it myself really. Fair enough, it's not toxic in the literal sense that it burns your skin off, but yeah. And just to keep it more recent of something I've smelt, that Chocolate Queen from Navitus. And the reason again why that's so disappointing is I like Gabby. I think Gabby's great. Is Duchamp is the perfumer, is he? I'm sure I've not just made that up. But great perfumer, great influencer, who apparently the influencers are the creative directors. Now Gabby has very good taste, so when she smelt that, I would have thought she'd want some tweaks. The opening is, well, I mean, wow. It's so astringent, it's so bizarre, it's so, not bizarre in a good way, I mean, it's bizarre like, what? And then, I mean, after a few hours, it's alright. And now, I'm not someone who's against synthetic materials and stuff, and the perfumer is a very gifted perfumer. But it makes you wonder, you know, I don't know, if Picasso was given a lump of feces and a stick to paint with, would he have still created such masterpieces? You know, I mean, there's a point where you know, you say you're only as good as your tools. I think that's fine. To be fair, it's not the tool. It's that no, I disagree. I mean, if you're going to hammer a nail in the wall with some jelly, you're not going to get very far, are you? Anyway, I don't want to be rude about it, because it just doesn't work on me, and I know it's one of them again that folks really seem to love. So yeah, I don't want to always be negative and stuff, and it's just a personal thing. It's subjective, isn't it, whether you like or don't like something. Do I like blind buying? To be fair, it's not something I do a lot. I'm actually quite well behaved with things like that. It's exciting when you do it, but of course there's always that risk. And as Mr. Sample person, I sample an awful lot. It's become less and less necessary. But sometimes, if I like the sound of something and it's reasonably priced. I mean, I'm saying this as the guy who blind bought amouages. But yeah, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not, because I'm not one of these people who flips the bottles and sells them on, so I kind of get stuck with it through guilt, and then it just stay there forever. And I don't think I've ever had a major blind buying fail. I've had a few I've not liked. I've had a fake, obviously that went back. So yeah, it's naughty, but really, you don't want loads of fragrances that you don't like or are just meh, do you? So blind buying is a bit, yeah. My 5 favourite notes. This obviously changes from time to time. We'll put one that isn't really actually a note as such. Well, it is, but it isn't, if you get what I mean. It's ambrette, and that's of course a musk. So you can smell it, but it's not. It's more the effect it has, isn't it? It's more the whoa, and it's just a kind of magical note, isn't it? Really, and it adds some sensuality. It adds some lust or whatever, some comfort even to a fragrance. And despite it being vegetal musk, it can smell quite animalic sometimes, which adds to it. Violet is obviously one. I mean, that's a lot of my fragrances have violet in. It's very underused in fragrance, I think. I mean, violet as well is kind of overused in a certain way. It's often with the violet, rose, iris things, which I adore. But I'd love to see it used in sometimes in a more interesting way. I mean, it's not one I like, but the rain one, Black Rain, that has violet leaf and violet in it. The violet leaf is so astringent, it's like a nuclear blast, quite literally, that it's sadly can't enjoy the fragrance. It's a great fragrance, by the way, but I just can't enjoy that bit of it, so it kind of ruins it. Yeah. Raspberry, try and pick different, not all just flowers or whatever. Raspberry is when it's done right. When it's done wrong, it's horrific and hairspray and awful. But actually raspberry, when it goes with a darker note, adds that little bit of cheeky sweetness to it. That's 3 and 4. Rosewood as one of my woods. Rosewood is the kind of the regal wood to me. Rosewood is like this. It's not necessarily, it's hardwood smelling wise. I'm not talking about in real life, but it's not too dense, and it's kind of got this kind of oody sweetness, like an Arga wood oud, not like, you know, an overly pungent oud, or an oud that's a good quality oud that's dried down. It doesn't smell like oud, but it has that same kind of, you know what I mean, classy, regal feeling, and you can kind of, it takes you to smelling like an old ship or something like that, you know, like in the officers' quarters and things like that. And finally, we've done fruits, flowers, woods, musks. We'll go for another flower. Why not? Is lotus, because it's so criminally underused, and it has a kind of, or it's used badly sometimes, but it has a kind of dirtiness. It smells a bit pondy sometimes, but it has, and soily and earthy, but it has the lovely sweetness there. It's quite a sweet, noticeable flower when you can smell it. And yes, I suppose maybe it's because it's so underused, and maybe because it's in one of my favourite fragrances ever, which wasn't in them 3, and that's Lotus Rising from April Aromatics. But yeah, there's my 5 favourite notes at this moment in time. My least like notes, let's go for 2. Neroli. It just doesn't work on me. It's plain and simple. There's obviously people love neroli, and occasionally I do like it, and when it's prominent in a fragrance, because it somehow works, but generally it just smells like oven spray to me. It's nasty. It's sharp and what have you, which leads to the second one, and kind of all these similar notes to this, like bitter orange, petitgrain. Just too sharp and green, again like neroli. It's the astringentness of them, isn't it? I know they're there for freshness. I don't really overly enjoy fresh fragrances, so yeah, neroli, petitgrain are up there for similar sort of reasons. And maybe again it's experience. Maybe we've always used an oven cleaner with neroli in it, which is possible because it's the fresh citric smell, and I've always got that association. You know what, this is a weird one. If there's any discontinued perfume I could bring back, and why, and there's lots of reasons behind this one. I'm not going to say it's my favourite fragrance ever, I do like it, is Killian's Love. And the reason I say that is, first of all, there's the pretense that it's not reformulated. It is. It really is. There's just no chance it's not. It smells different. Never mind about the colour, that's irrelevant. It smells different. It doesn't have the depth and the fluffiness of the marshmallow and the kind of, even the sweetness, even in the newer versions, which I like, don't get me wrong, they're all right. The sweetness is not, it's not as rich. And the reason I'd want to bring it back is so that everyone can experience it. The fact that it's blatantly been reformulated, is exposed. I don't know why you'd not say that, to be honest with you. And it also again would show what certain these big umbrella brands do to a brand. The fact that sometimes things need reformulating, that's fair enough. It's just the way of the world, but you'd admit it, wouldn't you? And you is reformulating it, making it cheaper. Yeah, and that's the reason I bring it back. Because first of all, it is a brilliant fragrance, but also because it got so popular, because of one reason, we all know Rihanna. And then they changed it. It's almost like a con job, isn't it? To me personally. And I'm a big fan of Killian, as we know, but that's the one. Do I have a signature scent? In a word, no. Though probably my most worn are like Dupe, Coco Mademoiselle, even Chanel Allure Homme, which I hate. In fact, that could have been one I mentioned in the other one. I hate the new formulation. It's got nothing to it, but it's a kind of nothing fragrance. It's actually one I wear quite a lot just because it's a nothing fragrance. But as far as having a signature scent, nah. I like to shake it up, wear something a bit different, and just, yeah, enjoy different things. There are some I gravitate to more, obviously. Anyway, best perfume on the opposite sex. I'm not sure. The premise of the question is probably relating to what attracts you, but there's more to attracting someone than a perfume. And if that was the case, that the perfume was so powerful, what does it matter which gender it's on? Because it's supposed to be about the perfume, isn't it, not the person? So the premise of that question is a bit... Anyway, not to be difficult and what have you, I would say between Black Opium and Alien. I'm going to say Alien because I think I've wore Alien and I've smelt it on other people of the same. Yeah, I've smelt it on other blokes and stuff. It's just it's one of the greatest fragrances ever made. It was groundbreaking, it was unique, it was different, jasmine done in a different way, and it's a fragrance that easily, I mean, people always go on, it leads this way, it leads that way, and all that nonsense that I am not going to give air to. It because of it's not a traditionally flowery floral, if you like, and because it's so dark and musky, anyone, even if they have that weird affliction of things being in a pink bottle, it's not in a pink bottle, but do you know what I mean? If things in a certain section, can't wear that. So yeah, I think Alien is just, it's a masterpiece, isn't it? And it smells great on anyone, and it has a certain magic when you smell it. So yeah, that's Mugler's Alien. And finally, I'm just going to chuck a question of my own in. If I could be a fragrance, what would it be and why? I think that's a question nobody's asked before. Do you know what? I'd go for Rolling in Love for the fairly obvious choice. It will bring happiness to many, many, many people. First of all, primarily, it's a fragrance you'd wear for yourself, for you to enjoy. It's not shouting out to everybody in the world, and it's classy, and it's one of the best fragrances ever made by miles. And yeah, it would bring the person wearing it joy and happiness, wouldn't it? So also it's all the best moments in life, let's just put it that way. You get lots of snuggles and enjoyment out of it. God, this is sounding very disturbingly weird, isn't it? But yeah, that's my last question, just for a bit of fun. Right, folks, yeah, it was quite a brief one, that. Some interesting questions there, some that were a bit harder to kind of go through, but yeah, it's fun doing these sorts of tags, isn't it? And I guess the problem is when we've been about a while and we've done quite a few, it can get a little repetitive. That's no offense to anyone who's made it, obviously spent time, and you know, could I do better? So what about you, to any of them questions? What got you into it all and all of that jazz? If you could be a perfume, what would you be and why? Alright folks, thanks for watching. Bye. I will tag people, by the way, if there's anyone left to tag when this comes out.